Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me, ladies. And my voice is clear. وعليكم السلام جميعا. I guess my voice is clear, or I hope so. Okay, that's good. So, today we are actually scheduling or planning the last lecture for Lane 449 course lectures. And as I mentioned last time, today I'm going to proceed with the play, which I started talking about its background on Monday. And I'll try my best to move on to the background of the second play, and I'm going to plan another lecture, a makeup lecture. Actually, I thought about the makeup lecture, and I think it would be suitable if we scheduled it on Sunday from 5 to 7. So our makeup lecture, inshallah, will be from 5 to 7 on Sunday. So please remember this date, and I will, of course, email you on Blackboard to remind you. So let's continue now what we started last time. Please give me a couple of seconds to access my material. Thank you. Okay, let me first re-emphasize the idea or the concept of the theater of the absurd. So last time I talked about the theater of the absurd, but I felt that probably a few more details would be more of help for you, because I emphasized the idea of existentialism a bit more, and I guess both concepts are important and they are related to each other, going hand in hand. So theater of the absurd is actually a number of dramatic works, literary works belonging to the genre of drama. So they are dramatic works, and actually they belong to both European and American dramatists of the 1950s and early 60s. And these dramatists, whether European or Americans, they agreed with the concept of existentialism, especially the philosophy of Albert Camus, a French philosopher who promoted the concept of existentialism. And the concept of existentialism, which he developed, was included in an essay he wrote in 1942 called or entitled The Myth of Sisyphus. And in this essay, Albert Camus discussed the idea of the human situation, how it is essentially absurd, of no meaning, pointless, meaningless, and devoid, it means empty of any purpose. So this is the core idea promoted by this philosopher and agreed about by most dramatists, whether European or American, who followed the trend of the absurd theater, because the absurd theater borrowed from the concept of existentialism. And the concept of existentialism, as promoted by the French philosopher Albert Camus, was also shared by other playwrights and writers like Tom Stoppard, Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, and Jean Genet. So these playwrights shared a pessimistic vision. It's the opposite of optimistic. And their vision was centered on how humanity was struggling in vain for no good purpose, to find a purpose and to control its fate. And how also humankind and humanity in general, following this concept or this idea, is left with feelings of hopelessness and anxiety and bewilderment. It means that humanity is actually lost within this universe, which has no purpose in the first place. And when human beings try to find any purpose, they feel more and more hopeless, bewildered, lost, and anxious. And we need to know, where do these writers, playwrights, and philosophers find their concept? So how did they come up with this idea? What is the reason and what is the root behind this idea? Actually, the Second World War was the main factor, was the main cause, the catalyst, the trigger, the global nature of the international situation of the Second World War, and after its end was actually resulting in a trauma of living under the threat of nuclear annihilation, nuclear bomb, and the perspective also of the human life being at risk. So people were living in fear. They were void of any meaning. They were living in fear out of the threat of the nuclear destruction. And absurdity, waiting for something to happen, the illusion of living, they were hardly surviving, enhanced this absurdity. Absurdity became part of the daily existence of human beings. So, if we want also to compare the theater of the absurd to other types of theater, we would say that when compared to realist drama, theater of the absurd is surreal. It's not controlled by reality or logic, and it has no conflict. It's conflictless and also plotless. Plot reflects order, and we are talking about disorder. So the plot in a play should reflect the current situation in which the playwright is writing. Also, there was a disbelief in language, so the dialogue may often seem to be ununderstood and gibberish. The public's first reaction, the audience first reaction, was actually rejection and incomprehension. They could not understand it, and it was first rejected when first appeared. So let's talk about in this context, Waiting for Godot. So Waiting for Godot is actually one of the best known plays belonging to the theater of the absurd and existentialism. And the playwright is Samuel Beckett, an Irish-born writer. The two main characters are Vladimir and Estragon. They are shown here in a bare scene waiting for Godot, who never arrives. So this is the idea of the absurd, of the pointless, of the illusion. So Beckett's play actually through this fact, the central idea that they are waiting for Godot who never arrives, highlights the absurdity of existence and the absurdity of man's need for hope. Man needs to create elements in his life to be able to live, to survive, to create hope. So, and the whole idea is actually absurd. So it's actually a controversial and absurd play, and the character actually of the play are strange caricatures representing human beings who have difficulty to communicate the simplest ideas to one another. And they bide their time awaiting the arrival of a person named Godot. The language actually is repeated in a cycle. It's cyclical and it's pointless. It carries no meaning, and the play actually doesn't really evolve in the manner other plays have a structured plot and you are waiting for an event. So usually it was called Waiting for Godot was called the play where nothing happens. Also, the play is described as an accurate representation of the human condition, in which the more things change, the more they are the same. Is that clear, ladies? Okay, good. So, the most common themes and motifs in theater of the absurd are dream, allegory, and archetype. So, in usual traditional forms of theater, the attempt is to create a photographic representation of life. It means what you see in real life is duplicated, repeated, imitated photographically on stage. But the theater of the absurd aims to create an archetypal, mythological vision closely related to the world of dreams rather than the world of reality, because in reality they don't find anything important to imitate. And this waiting for things to happen is actually similar to a dream. That's why the theater of the absurd's main focal point is actually an imitation, a recreation of a dream-like vision of the world. The focal point of these dreams is the capital M, man's confusion, the confusion of man, his anxiety, his bewilderment, his sense of loss, because he has no answers to the basic existential questions. Why we are alive, why we have to die, why there is injustice and suffering. So human beings live in a world where logic and sense do not exist. They are lost, they are anxious, and they try to answer questions to which they don't find any answers. Basically, the sense of living, why they are alive, why they have to die, questioning the essence of death, and why there is a growing sense of injustice and suffering. One of the most important aspects of absurd drama and absurd theater is distrust of language. There is no actually a sense of communication. Language is not trusted to carry any meaning or any communication. And language has become nothing but a vehicle of repeated, meaningless exchange. It's simply a stereotype. Theater of the absurd also, that words cannot go beyond the surface. They have no meaning behind their meaning. They cannot actually express the basic meaning of a human existence, let alone to express any meaning further beyond what is said. Often, there is, when it comes to plot devices, the common plot devices, there is always a mysterious outside force that threatens the characters, but to which they find no answer. There is also unresolved mysteries. They are actually unresolved. We have no answer to these mysteries, and total absence, emptiness, and nothingness. And also the action is cyclical. It means it repeats itself and ends exactly where it began. For example, in Samuel Beckett Waiting for Godot, both characters are repeating the same event. They are part of the same event. They started the play waiting for Godot, a man who never comes, a person who never comes, and it ends exactly where it began. At the end of the play, they are still waiting for Godot who never comes. So, to wrap up, existentialism is a philosophical movement that landed itself in many other literary and artistic aspects, mainly drama. It emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice. By this, existentialism states that man exists, and in that existence, man tries to define himself. Wanders between freedom, existentialist anxiety, and choice. Human beings exist and think, but the world around them has no meaning except for what they can create through their own action. Actually, also, human beings are considered responsible for what they make of themselves, and freedom and responsibility overlap together and generate intense responsibility and anxiety for the human being. There is a fear of non-being and nothingness. Human reason is limited. It doesn't allow them to understand the world around. And most playwrights who were influenced by existentialist philosophers try to apply these ideas in what they write. Is that clear so far? Okay, good. So let's continue then. Give me please a couple of seconds to proceed the next part. So, Waiting for Godot was a play published in 1954, and it was first written in French and was translated into many other languages. The play has two main characters and one setting. The setting doesn't change. It's very bare, basic, with no decoration. And the two characters are also of no real depth. And the main point it depicts is death, how it is inevitable, not without pain, and it comes in various forms: physical, real, personal, metaphorical, and the sense of loss. The motive, the element that enhances the idea of death is hanging. So there is actually one aspect on stage that refers to death through hanging. And also there is the idea of change. Lack of change, nothing really changes. In the play, Samuel Beckett says, "One day we were born, one day we shall die the same day," as if nothing changes. For the relationship, or the relationships between characters, it's simply companionship, necessary, not chosen, and complete absence of women, no female characters whatsoever. There are strange relationships, master and slave, and also a sense of companionship. They accompany each other. So the plot of the play, now I'm going to comment on the synopsis, dramatic structure and storyline of the play, from which you can understand many other aspects. Yes, ladies, can you hear me? Again, Blackboard logged me out all of a sudden. I hope you can hear me now. Okay, good. So the last point I commented on was on the plot of Waiting for Godot. So I'm going to continue talking about the plot. So I said that the plot is very easy to follow and to relate to. We have two main characters, Estragon and Didi. Even the names do not make any sense. It can be anybody. There is nothing specific about the names or the characters. They can be any other human being. So these two friends or companions are waiting for the arrival of Mr. Godot. And actually they do what everybody else can do in a pointless manner. They fight, they make up again, they contemplate upon suicide, they talk about suicide, they try to sleep, they eat what they can find. And there are two other characters who appear, a master and a slave. They actually perform a very unusual and unclear scene in the middle of the play. So a young boy arrives to say that Mr. Godot will not come today, but that he will come tomorrow. They play the act again. They wait, they quarrel, they fight, so it's a vicious circle, and Mr. Godot doesn't come the day after. So the play actually relates strongly to its title, Waiting for Godot. This is what these two characters are simply doing along with the arrival of the two other characters, the master and the slave. And Mr. Godot doesn't come, and the characters, they resume what they were doing. The only slight change that happens between the first day and the second day are actually few leaves on the tree. They sprout, they appear. And this is the only symbol of a possible order in a thoroughly, completely alienated world, a world of fracture, of loss, of disorder, and of chaos. Now, the two tramps, along with Pozzo and Lucky, this is the name of the master and the slave, are just chaotic also characters. And they are purely comic and grotesque. They involve in a traditional routine that comes from the entire life. And also the language of the play has, despite its absence of sense, it has some intensity and some consciousness. There is one particular long speech of Lucky, but it is also meaningless. It has its own beauty, its own charm. It makes its own comment on man's absurd hope and absurd insignificance of man. Um, there is also sense of simplicity in the play, and this simplicity is coming from three unities in the play: the unity of place, the unity of time, and the unity of action. So the place can be any place. It is characterized as being the place where Godot is not coming. And the play, as it progresses, we come to realize that Mr. Godot is not in any place comparable to the setting of the play. He will not come out of any other place into another. The unity of time is represented by the 48 hours, the 2 days, in which the play actually takes place. So the unity of time, 2 days, and the sequence of days, night and day, can be the sequence of day in anyone's life. Time is also the equivalent of the main action, which is the title of the play, the fact of waiting. And there is a sense of immobility, very few minor changes to take place, few tree leaves grow, and one of the characters, Poggio, becomes blind. The act of waiting is never over, and this is the absurdity and the mysteriously startup of every day and the end of every day. The action also, as you can see, waiting, waiting, and waiting. It goes on and on. It describes a circle, a vicious circle of life. We wake up, we do the same things on the hope that new things would happen. So each day here is the return to the beginning. Nothing is completely complete because nothing can be simply complete. And this is the core despair defined indirectly in the play, which is the lack of action and how it gives the play its metaphysical and its philosophical aspect. So it's simply the play where nothing happens exactly as in life really. So in one scene after the other, there is a permanent, continuous absurdity of the world. There is one scene between the master and the slave, and both of them carry heavy suitcase without thinking of dropping it. They are unable to utter in a coherent speech. And the unity also of place, there is a particular site on the edge of the forest where the tree is, which the characters cannot actually leave. So the setting is similar to a prison. And also the two friends are trying to improvise, to think of a dialogue, and this actually brings the public or the audience to laughter. So there is a sense of alienation from the social norm, and there is a total pessimism, but still there is a sense of humor when they try to improvise, invent things, and they don't do them the right way. So the two men, Estragon and Vladimir, may be every man, and Godot can be also anything in life for which they wait and it doesn't come. The real name of Vladimir is Didi, and he's a little bit more hopeful, and he has a steady temperament in comparison to Estragon. So the life of these two characters is a representation of everybody else's life, and this strange relationship is similar to the irregular and misunderstood relationships in life. So the play is an attempt to imitate action, and action doesn't really take place except for waiting, and this actually gives a sense of despair and disformity to the play. Is that clear? So the play is, as I mentioned, is said to be one of the most significant plays belonging to theater of the absurd, and the play actually projects on the senseless aspect of life and its absurdity. It has one dramatic form that represents this idea. The constantly vicious circle-like plot, the bare decoration of the setting, and the two people in a waste place endlessly and fruitlessly are waiting for an unknown person who may not come, and actually he never comes, and they sometimes think they might have an appointment, but they forgot about its exact timing. The play promotes the main concept of the absurd in a comic and also irrational manner, and it's actually an imitation to life in its absurd form. What adds to the absurdity of the form is, as we mentioned, the dialogue. Sometimes it's dark, and sometimes it's pessimistic, and at times it's funny. Another important feature is how the episode of the events is actually cyclical. It happens as circles, and it actually destroys the logical and syntactical coherence of life and also of language. So Samuel Beckett himself um, was born in 1906 and passed away in 1989. He was actually an Irish writer who lived in France, in Paris. And the play is a first production of his long journey in Paris on a very small budget. He was influenced by other philosophers, existentialist philosophers, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, and they commented also on how Christianity as a religion was absurd and pointless as well as irrational. So another reading of the play Waiting for Godot is it's just a satire to religion. And the main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, are waiting endlessly for Godot. Some critics say that Godot might be Christ, Jesus Christ, for whom they are waiting to come and would never come. And their pursuit also, their waiting seems hopeless. So actually, the play main event, which is waiting, is a reflection on people's free decision to wait. They might contradict logic, they might contradict reason, but this is their decision. And it seems that the two friends, according to Beckett, continually make decisions, wrong decisions, and they are unable to carry them out. In many of his works, critics also say that Beckett creates a number of what we call philosophical imitation, whether in purpose or not. He uses references to main German writers and philosophers, Hegel, Heidegger, and Bergson, and also his plays generally use philosophical reference to the comic element. Also, he was very influential on other writers. Is that clear? Okay, good. So let's take a break until Maghrib. You pray Maghrib and then we continue. So at least you can take now a short break. You can think of what I have already introduced if you happen to have any questions. And then after Maghrib prayers by 5 minutes, we'll inshallah continue. So when we come back from the break, I will start introducing the background of Death of a Salesman. You're welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me. The break I gave you is over, so I hope you are here so that you can listen to what I'm going to proceed with. So as I mentioned earlier before the break, we are done with commenting on the play, Waiting for Godot, its background, theater of the absurd and existentialism. We showed how through the plot and the use of language, actually the play is an existentialist play belonging to theater of the absurd. Now we are going to move on, continuing with the main play, the second main play, which is Death of a Salesman. Death of a Salesman in chronological order comes before Waiting for Godot because it was written in the late 40s, 1949. So we'll comment on and discuss rather the background, and then we'll move to talk, if any time left, about the synopsis of the play. If not, it will be discussed from 5 to 7, inshallah, on Sunday in the makeup lecture. So the other play is Death of a Salesman. The point we will start with is American modern theater and realism, because this is the trend in which this play lands itself. So please give me a couple of seconds. So let's talk first about realism being also one important trend in modernism, especially when it comes to American theater and American realist theater. Realism actually is a trend in which dramatists and playwrights as well as writers moved to talk in a manner similar to that found in everyday context and everyday behavior. The style has been dominant for the last 100 or 150 years, and it holds the idea on which it centers is that the stage as an environment rather than as an acting platform. So the stage is actually a duplicate, a representation, a typical representation of the surrounding environment rather than simply an acting platform. Realism came as a response to Romanticism. It was, in a way, a rejection to Romanticism. And Romanticism focused on exotic locale, on sort of historical heroes. And as the 19th century progressed, there were contributing elements that encouraged realism to emerge, mainly late 19th century, whether social or political ideas, playwriting, theatrical innovation, all these elements or factors helped realism to come to theater. As far as the political context, the political contribution to realistic theater. In Europe, ideas of Napoleon Bonaparte in France, the concept of equality and fraternity, and also the industrial age, diseases and poverty, and the idea that life is a sewer. It became just an outcry. And the ideas dominating the century, was Freud, psychology, Darwin, scientific methods, and also how the lower and middle classes were now seen as heroes. In theatrical element, you are going to find actually attention to detail and electric lighting. And it was time also for the well-made play in terms of plot. It's a technique of playwriting, which was found by Ibsen and other realists. The plot actually contains secrets, or a number of secrets revealed gradually in the play, and they are known to the audience but not known for certain characters. The secret is revealed, and this is in the climax, where we know also the antagonist. The protagonist's dignity is restored. Special attention was paid to exposition and the entire first act. Also, there are expected and logical reversals, discovery scenes where the antagonist learns facts which can hurt the protagonist. And the last point is that how the movement is believable and logical, and how actually it repeats the general action of the entire play. So the next point here is the name, the title of the play. Rather, we say title, by Arthur Miller. So when it comes to modern American drama, of course, when it comes to this trend, we have to talk about Arthur Miller, the main playwright. I think I can email you his career. So I'll email you the notes on the playwright. Sometimes they say that they can't access it easily. Once I close the whiteboard, it goes. And sometimes when I upload it and they try to save it, they say it's empty, the girls. So I'm not sure how it really works. So the notes are quite easy to look at, and they don't require much explanation. So what I want to emphasize on, or what I want to emphasize is actually the idea of the tragic hero, the modern tragic hero, and the identity crisis in the play as embodied by Willy Loman, the main character. And the main theme here is the criticism of the American dream. So the American dream here is actually emphasized and also criticized. So when it was first released and published, the title before its publication that actually Miller thought about and wanted to use as title is The Inside of His Head. And then he changed his mind, Arthur Miller, and he chose Death of a Salesman. Whether the first title or the second title, there is a certain expressionistic element. It means that Arthur Miller wants us to imagine right from the title, right from the beginning, the content and the extent of the play and its content. So it's actually a tragedy of the common man, and Arthur Miller wants to create a form which is in itself a form. So the process of Willy Loman's way of mind. Arthur Miller wrote Death of a Salesman in 1949, a year after the end of the Second World War, and he won a very prestigious prize for that, the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, and a New York Drama Critics Circle Award. Willy Loman has a tragic flaw, and this tragic flaw causes his downfall, and the focus is not on a nobleman, as in tragedy usually, but the focus is on an ordinary man. And the story of Willy Loman can be any other common American man. Miller's play is actually a novelty, a progress from the ancient form of tragedy. We have the protagonist, Willie, obsessed with the question of success and greatness, and his downfall started directly from his misconception about himself. So at the age of 63, Willie Loman still believes that he is someone capable of greatness, and also the root of the belief in greatness actually is coming from personal charisma or popularity. The play has many other characters along with Willie Loman, but Willie Loman character is very important. He has a web of relationships around him. First, Willie Loman is 63 years old. He was a popular salesman. He lost his popularity and sales, and also he is going insane. His wife, Linda, is trying to protect Willie's feelings. She's aware of his failure, and she can't make herself confront him. It means that she's trying to hide the truth, not to hurt his feelings. His son, Biff, 34 years old, has been in search for himself while working in the West to please his father, and Happy tries all he can to please also his father, continuing his father's dream after he dies. But both characters, his sons, are also a projection of Willie Loman's failure. The play opens with a very detailed description of Willie Loman's state of mind, and the action takes place at a moment when Biff, his son, returns from the farms from the west to visit his family, and Happy also is glad to see his brother. But Willie is strangely irritated and anxious. He talks to old friends. He imagines his family, namely his uncle, and Willie actually has a flashback of the time. So he lives in the present, but his mind is still functioning in the past. So at times he talks to his sons, and he imagines that they are still in high school. They are still promising high school students. And also he imagines his fights with Linda. He still imagines his encouragement to Biff in the football game. And later, both his sons are talking to their mother and ask her about their father's condition. And they all see that they cannot continue misleading their father about his current situation, being not a promising salesman anymore. So Willie decides to go to his boss, Howard, and ask if he can work in New York so that he doesn't have to drive all the way to work, 700 miles. And the next day he goes to Howard, but he loses his temper and shouts at his boss, and he has been officially fired. So he himself confronts his family, told them about that he was fired, and the problem is that he falls into a long flashback. He cannot go back to the present. And Miller actually uses flashback and reverie to emphasize what is going on in Willie's mind, because it's very important to understand what is going on in his mind. Other motives include also boxed feelings, ideas, that and also life is passing as like a quote for Willie. Arthur Miller, the playwright, also seems to say that any man can have a great fall and also go through a great tragedy, but the point is that he must find another balance to get back to life. So the tragedy of Willie Loman is that he cannot find that point to return. So this is the tragedy of one's identity rather than a simple downfall. So we have scenes in reality, in the present, interrupted by his frequent mental leaps into the past. So he tries to create a congruency of the past and present. The revelation that Willie has been trying to avoid led him at the end to kill himself. So the very end is very tragic, and the powerful climax explodes after the secret knowledge of this knowledge of his father's adultery in Boston. So Willie refuses to accept his son's insistence, and he still insists on his greatness, and he ignores his infidelity. And also the tragedy is the consequence of Willie's compulsion to evaluate himself. So he refuses to evaluate himself. He still believes in his greatness as in the past. And the concept of the tragic flow here applies perfectly well on Willie Loman. So I think I will stop here for today, and inshallah I will continue in the makeup class on Sunday from 5 to 7, inshallah. Till then, enjoy your weekend, take good care of yourself, good luck with your other lectures, and see you inshallah on Sunday in the makeup class. If you have any questions, feel free to either email them to me or prepare them for next time for discussion. Thank you so much. Fi amanillah. Good night. See you. Bye.